You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
Oh, Mr. McDivitt, looking dapper, my friend. Look at you.
Thank you very much.
Blue plaid suit thing today?
I actually match. Like, I even looked at my tie, like, does this tie go with this jacket? I know, but then I got this one. I think it does go. You know what I always try to do? I always try to avoid, I call it the Regis Philbin, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Look, do you remember that show?
I do remember the show.
I think he popularized this idea of a red shirt within a red tie.
Oh, okay.
And
the packs. A lot of NFL players do that too.
Well,
color overload.
Color overload, but you can maybe do too much of it, and on the right person, it looks great. But then they started packaging these things. You go to the store and you go buy the shirt with the matching tie, and I might have done that a couple of times. And then somebody said, maybe you should try to do just your own organic styling. So
now, although the colors, though, the McDivitt Law Firm is the official law firm for the Denver Broncos. That's right. That looks an awful lot like a Minnesota Vikings outfit, which they're going to be playing on Sunday, bro.
Night, I know.
What are you doing? You're getting off your brand, bro.
I know. This is the blue. This is Bronco blue. We are going to win that game. I have said this. I've been saying it to my firm for several weeks now. We are running the table. Book your ticket to the Super Bowl if you're a Broncos fan.
All aboard!
You heard it here first. Don't actually bet money on that. I'm not that confident.
Yeah.
Or actually make a plane ticket that you can't get refunded.
After their win, I was doing the future look at the schedule, and the Broncos will win this week, but only win one more game after this. So it's going to be a 7-10 season, I'm afraid. They got some tough games left.
How about the Buffs? How are they going to do?
Dude, what happened?
Can we win the next two?
Dude, the Buffaloes were like everyone's dreamy date, and now they're the ugliest broad at the ball.
Tell you what, I went to a CU game a couple of weeks ago. I invited friends out, homecoming. I went to Boulder for undergrad and law school. And a couple
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and a couple of my buddies flew out, and I got tickets to the game, and I was able to finagle some sideline passes.
Nice.
So I took my two buddies down onto the field, and this guy shows up, and he is blinging. I mean, he looks sharp as hell, and he's wearing his sunglasses, and he's got like gold on his shoes, and I looked at my buddies, I'm like,
who is this, man?
Master P.
The rapper?
The rapper.
What?
Like 5 feet behind me. So I'm taking selfies of me just so you can get Master P in the background.
That's Master P with all his gold bling.
It's awesome.
Wow, cool. It's amazing the kind of people they've had on that sideline this year.
I know. They had Dr. J last week. And by the way, I was there at a night game, so this guy's wearing sunglasses at night. And you got to be the right kind of guy to pull that off.
You're the man. Win.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to get into some questions here. We got some legal questions involving vehicles, which is an interesting thing I never knew existed, but it is a thing in regards to being able to sell a vehicle. We're talking more specifically about that Tesla truck that comes out at the end of the month. There's a clause in there about you and your inability to get rid of the thing unless you want to be sued by Tesla, which is just ridiculous, but real. But before we get into these, we have some freebies today. Speaking of football.
Air Force football.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. We've got 6 tickets to the Air Force game we're giving away. And we would love somebody who likes Air Force football, who would like to bring their family or friends to go to the
party,
game.
Right? You'll be the man.
It's going to be a great game.
And these are McDivitt seats, so they're good seats.
They're not bad. These are seats that my mom and dad got decades ago.
Wow.
And then finally added 2 more to them so we could have 6 so I could bring my kids and go with my mom and dad. These are our seats.
This is the McDivitt family seats?
These are the McDivitt family seats. And we're not going to be able to go to this game. We'd love to give them to a family or people who would enjoy going to the game. So all you have to do literally is just go to our social media feeds, whether it's the McDivitt Law Firm Facebook page or the McDivitt Law Firm Instagram page. You'll see a little post that we did. We put it up yesterday. Just said, we're giving away 6 free tickets to the Air Force game. I think all you have to do is like the post, and then we'll see your name, and then we'll enter you in, or comment on the post. But then obviously pay attention. Here's the thing. Sometimes people will like posts, and they'll want to be entered, and then we're ready to give the tickets away because we do this with other things as well, and we can't find them. So I know everybody wants to hide behind a shield of anonymity online, but this is one where if you do like it and we do let you know you've won, at least try to write back.
Yeah, right. No, that happens sometimes. We do that. Like
the station, that happens all the time.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you want to, like we have a couple cash bomb winners. They won cash money, and we can't get a hold of them to fill out their paperwork.
Why don't I hold on to that until we get a hold of them?
It's like we should, 30 days, and then it turns into a beer fund.
That's right.
Something like that. Okay, so we got tons of email questions we're going to get to. We got room. If you got anything on the rock lines, you want to hit us up at 633-KILO. We can probably take care of you this hour as well. Let's start with a couple stories, though. One involves the clause in the new Tesla, which says if you sell it within a year, they can sue you for $50,000. I said that was ridiculous, but then I got blown up with texts and emails. Ferrari does this. All the big automakers, when they release these collectible cars, they often put these no sell lease or no sell clauses in there, and I guess they are legal then.
Yeah, here's the thing. I mean, it's part of the contract. Yeah,
well, because someone calls it, well, hey, if you don't want to, then you just don't buy the car.
That's right.
And it kind of goes like when we were battling the pandemic and people about flying, and it's like, well, you can't make me wear a mask. Well, there's no amendment that says you have the right to fly,
or that
you either go by their rules and fly as they say, or jump in your car and drive your ass wherever you want to go. This is similar to that. Just like either you buy the car and you deal with the clause, or you don't buy the car.
And what they're trying to do, and I first found out about this a number of years ago. I went to a conference in Las Vegas. It was at the Wynn Hotel, and the Wynn has changed a little bit since then, but they used to have, right off of the casino floor, a Ferrari dealership and repair center.
That's trouble.
It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
Dude, you win $1 million to go buy a Lambo.
I'm sure they have people doing that. But Ross, it was a Ferrari deal, not a Lamborghini deal. Get your Italian car.
I know I read up on this. I know there's very much a hatred. I forget which company bans you from ownership if you own the other version.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like, let's say it's Ferrari. If you own a Lamborghini and they know of it, they won't give you a Ferrari.
Well, luckily, I'm still available to purchase any of them.
Both?
Because I own neither.
So, I'm sorry, there's hatred there. I misspoke.
No, it's okay. But for $10, you could go in. So you actually had to pay to go into the store. And I did this one time. I went with my mom and I think my dad, we paid,
that's a powerful brand right there.
We paid $30 just so we could go and see these cars, because we don't get to see Ferraris very often.
Especially brand new on the showroom.
Oh, yeah. And so, but what they said, they had a guy there, and we just started gabbing with him, and he said, look, some of these cars, when we sell them, we'll only sell them to people who are current owners. So, a new Ferrari gets released, or one of these new exotic cars gets released. For a lot of them, forget the contract about reselling the car. They won't even sell it to you in the first place unless you are part of their
family.
Wow. You're listening to
so you have to kind of have like a starter Ferrari before you can buy a very fancy Ferrari. And then what they do, and this is what Tesla's doing, is they're trying to do a couple of different things. They want to make sure that they are continuing to support the integrity of their brand and the cost that they put into these cars. So if they market a car, let's just say a Ferrari's, I don't know, or I don't know how much the Tesla truck's going to be, but pick a car that's $300,000, right? Almost nobody on earth is going to be able to afford that car, but there are some people who can. Mm-hmm. The person buys it. They're only issuing, let's say, 500 of these cars. So you have 500 people who each buy the car. Most of them want to hold on to it, collect or show off to their friends, but a couple of them want to turn it around really quickly because only 500 people were allowed to buy it in the first place. And again, these are typically, like in the case of an exotic car, they're only going to sell them to 500 people who are already in their universe.
In the club.
Now you're going to sell to somebody outside of the club who has got plenty of money, but just wasn't in the club and wasn't one of the first 500. Now, person's
easily tripling the price,
whatever it is. $600,000, $900,000. Now all of a sudden they have a car. They didn't have to be in the club, and all of a sudden Ferrari's selling their cars for $300,000. But the people who are the resellers are now turning around and making a quick $600,000 profit on it. That money's not going to Ferrari. That's going to the people in their VIP club. So they don't want that.
Uh-huh.
And they want to make sure that they then have that runway. In this case, I think Tesla's saying it's going to be a year. You can't resell it for a year or 2 years. I think John Cena did it, where he bought a special Ford GT a few years ago. This was like a $500,000 Ford GT supercar, and he turned around and sold it, I don't know, within like a month or something. I think Ford sued him. And they ended up settling out of court because he violated the terms of the contract.
Wow.
And so these are legitimate contracts. And just for all of you who are listening right now, who, unlike yours truly, is in the market for a $300,000 car, just be careful. Don't turn around and resell it. And certainly don't call me because I'm not about to send $600,000.
One of the guys shot me an email about one of these big companies that do this. I was like, stories like this make me really appreciate the fact that I'm not rich.
Yeah,
rich people problems. I don't need it. I don't need it.
So Ross, if we were rich, I do need to know this. Are you a Ferrari guy? Are you a Lamborghini guy? What kind of guy are you when it comes to cars?
Actually, I don't know what of those two. I'd probably go with some kind of super high-end Range Rover.
Okay, I was going to say it doesn't have to be one of those two. Yeah, you'd pick a Range Rover.
More like an off-road kind of guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to get there fast. I just want to get there through whatever conditions I need.
Mm-hmm.
So
I understand.
But I take, if anyone wants to give me anything, I will take and drive whatever.
I have been, since I was a little kid, a Ferrari guy.
Ferrari?
I just think That's my dream car.
Yeah, I mean, that just all those cars. I mean, I did have like those posters and stuff. Hot chick laying on a Ferrari, red Ferrari.
Do you remember
the days?
Do you remember the poster? And they even had it in my school too. And it was a fancy car. Looked like it was a house in a stucco home in California with the sun setting, and their garage doors were open. They had 4 different cars, and you could see the rear ends of these cars, like a Porsche, a Ferrari, maybe a BMW, something else, and it said justification for a higher education. I'll never. That's
inspiration right there.
I mean, I got the education.
That's when little David was like, "I'm gonna be a lawyer one day.
I'm gonna have a Ferrari
guy."
Well, I'm a lawyer.
All right, I tell you, we got one more. Let's do this one as quick as possible on the car front as well. Then we'll get into some of these listener emails. The Springs Police Department has now officially repossessed 3 automobiles that were considered nuisance vehicles. It was people driving around, jackassing, driving unsafe, filming it, posting it online. And the city council revised an ordinance about public nuisance and vehicle, basically legalized theft of vehicles. And they have seized 3 of these vehicles. And it says they can keep these things off the streets for up to a year. The drivers were also cited with criminal citations for reckless driving, and they'll go to court for that. If convicted, they could face jail time. They could get their license suspended. And like I said, they can impound these vehicles for up to a year. There is some addendums to it. So if the car is financed by a bank or whatever, they can take it back. But then there's also a condition you can't give it back to the original owner. If it's like a parents and the kid steals the car, they can also get that vehicle back with some singing and dancing. But how can the city just say, I'm going to take your vehicles?
Well, they think they found a carve out here, and I don't know.
Is it going to be legally challenged?
Things like this are always challenged. Some for like,
so I would think you just suspend their license because then they can't drive their vehicle.
Ross Ford,
I'm genius, right?
No.
What? What's wrong with that?
How many people are driving out right now with a suspended license?
Well, I know, but then they get pulled over. Then they go to jail, right?
That's the whole point. They said, look, if we take the car, then makes it a lot harder for them to get on the road if they don't have the wheels.
I think it's easier to get another car than it is to get another driver's license.
Yeah, but look,
you don't. I understand.
You don't actually. The car doesn't turn on or off based on whether you have a driver's license or insurance.
Ooh, but that's a good way. You have to swipe your card to get your car to start. Yeah. Anyway, we're getting
no, I mean, actually, there you go. That's not a bad idea. Here's the thing. I'm sure somebody's going to challenge this, but for right now, what the city's doing, and I'm Mr. Law and Order. I can totally support the idea of just saying, hey, listen, that's a dangerous, because the thing about a vehicle too is it can be used like a weapon. Yeah. Right. So if we can take people's weapons under certain conditions, like when they've been charged with a crime.
That's a good point. We can call all kinds of questions. The common question on this segment is always, hey, I'm a felon. How do I get my firearms?
That's right.
And it's a terrible process.
So I think that the analogous situation here is the car is a weapon. It's being used in a dangerous and reckless way. And in addition to the criminal matter, and then going through the whole criminal traffic courts, but they're also saying on a purely civil side, because this is separate, this is civil, we're going to seize and impound the vehicle. So vehicles that are used in the commission of a crime are impounded all the time. All right. I mean, you think about all these law enforcement auctions. You go in. This was Pablo Escobar's souped-up Range Rover. I mean, it's because it was used in the commission of a crime, or it was seized because it's an asset that was used. Ill-begotten means used to purchase the asset.
Wow, interesting.
Different reasons.
And technically, these vehicles are also being used in a crime. Maybe it's not as big as a bank robbery, but
I'm going to argue that it could be. I mean, worse than a bank robbery. I mean, what they're talking about is speeding and also evading police. Yeah. Right? That's a crime. But doing this reckless behavior and then people are filming it, that's dangerous. I mean, so is a bank robber, obviously. But I mean, this has that behavior has the ability to instantly end somebody's life, and it's or maim them forever. It's horrible. So listen, if you're listening to this, don't do reckless, stupid stuff on the road.
Don't do that.
Keep your car, keep your wheels.
Well, one of our former jocks, Bobby Oz, Mr. Oz, he lived out east. He said all the time. It was after 10 o'clock going home out east. He would get blown by with these vehicles all the time, racing.
They do that. Yeah, they get to these areas where they think that it's safer to do it. Right. And they're not in a population center, so in that sense it's safer, but it's still dangerous as heck.
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
First of all, I want to ask if you took care of, I don't even know how to say this guy's name. Oleskel, the guy who I sent you an email, guy was in a car accident.
Yep.
Did you guys track that guy down?
Yeah, we sure did.
Yeah?
Yep.
He's getting help from you?
I think he's getting some help.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, the story was interesting. He got hit by a guy. They called 911 and initially declined an ambulance ride. But then later, on the way home, he felt worse. So he went via ambulance to emergency, had a concussion. The story goes on and on. My God, you hear these all the time? These nightmare stories? I mean, it's just not like, the guy hit me and we exchanged insurance. It's never that simple, is it?
No, it never is.
God.
And that's why we're here, because it's not simple. And that happens a lot, by the way. People get in a crash and they're just dealing with the trauma of the crash itself and all of the inconvenience. It will at a minimum, a car crash, whether you're not hurt or not, it basically ruins your day, changes your whole schedule for the day, right? That's the best case scenario, is that your day is ruined. What happens oftentimes, people don't think they're hurt, and then about an hour later or 2 hours later or a day later, they wake up and they're, oh my gosh, I am in a tremendous amount of pain or discomfort. And so just because a person has declined medical care at the scene of a crash does not mean you have not killed your case. The most important thing that I will say this to anybody, if you are in a car crash, a motorcycle crash, you're hit by a semi, you get medical care as soon as you know you need it. And if you don't think you do at the time, that's fine. But the next day, you're in pain, get to urgent care, get to a hospital, call a doctor, start documenting that you have reached out to third parties and letting them know about the discomfort that you're in. Because I will tell you this, enough time goes by, the insurance company's going to say, hey, we're not going to pay your claim because, at the scene you said you weren't hurt, and then it took you 4 months to call a doctor.
Right.
And so, a lot of intervening things can happen.
They will try to stalemate you as much as they can when it comes to some of these cases, because the last thing they want to do is pay you, even though they should have to pay you.
Unlike your bookie.
Yeah, right?
Just like they hand out cash.
So, yeah, that's what McDivitt Law specializes in, but...
Not bookies, but car crashes.
The car crashes, yeah. Well, if you get roughed up by a bookie, he might be able to help you there.
If he's a deep-pocketed bookie, you bet. Give us a call.
But he's nice enough to kind of field all kinds of questions here. We're going to get to Michael's question, and we'll call him here in a few minutes. Sadly, his wife recently passed, and now he's left with all these bills, and he wants to know, is he on the hook for all this? Right there, what a cry for correction in our healthcare system. You should not lose your loved one and then sit there and have to pay thousands of dollars in bills. That's just sad. So we'll get to that one, because I think that, unfortunately, universal. A lot of people could find themselves in this situation. So that's here in a few. On the lighter side, Bonnie checking in saying CenturyLink is upgrading internet cables in our backyards. Legally, do we have to give them access to our private property? Yeah, they're upgrading to higher bandwidth internet. So they're popping into yours. They did it in my yard.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and the way I believe, as my experience with this, is that they're a utility company in that sense, because they're providing utility services, telephone, internet, and so there's an easement that is baked into real estate in Colorado, and so utility companies by statute have the right to go in.
It's almost like eminent domain. If they want to take your house to build a road over it, they could do that too. Like that.
That's a little different, a little trickier. This is an easement. It just says, look, this is your property, but we also have to serve the people in the community. And so whether it is making sure that we have water or access to the sewer system, or certainly telephone, electricity. I mean, these are your core utilities, and cable, internet, telephone. So yes, they can go in. They've got to give notice, and there are conditions that are in place. So they can't just destroy your property. They can't just knock a fence down necessarily. But if they have to do anything to try to get access to where the utility lines are for repair, replacement, or for installation, they do have to be careful. They have to work with things. But yeah, you pretty much are going to need to not stand there with a rifle and say, "This is my property, get off."
Get off my property.
It's not like Young Guns 2.
Right? I hate the internet and I hate you. Maybe.
Oh, that's what I was picturing.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, what if you're crotchety old off-gridder? Like, I don't have the internet, I don't have electricity.
When I was younger, my cousins, I didn't do this, but my cousins who lived in a different city in Colorado, they had cable coming into their house. But the cable there was a junction box at the corner of their property. And for some reason, their I don't know, like the casing was broken open a little bit. It was loose. And you could go in and
take the filter off?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I never did that either.
There were filters for every paid
just like this
station.
Metal tube, almost like a...
And if you unscrewed it, then all of a sudden, you got HBO or you got Cinemax. How about that? Or I wasn't thinking of
Playboy
that.
Channel.
I wasn't thinking of that.
Hot.
I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking of like Bravo and
That's funny.
Stars. And no, this predates Bravo and Stars. Like this was pure HBO, Cinemax, Showtime. Those were the three. What are the other pay TV? Oh, go ahead.
Come a long way. All right, so they can dig in your backyard. Now, do you have any rights as a homeowner? Or do they have to guarantee that if they do take down a fence, they got to put it back right and all that stuff?
I believe so. Yeah. I haven't looked at I don't know the statute in depth and what the rules are on that. But yeah, I mean, the idea is they can't be obtrusive. And the same thing, you notice that they'll, for electrical wires, oftentimes, they will subcontract with a company to come in and trim trees that are on your property that are impinging or at risk of interfering with cables, wires. So.
Let's move into this one. It's like out of Jerry Springer. It's Citizen Michael. My ex-girlfriend and I just split up. I had bought plane tickets to visit her family for a wedding. 3 days before the wedding, she broke up with me. I changed my ticket to go see family. I told her I wasn't going to leave her high and dry for the wedding. I owe her money for a vet bill, and I told her I was going to take the cost of the plane ticket out of the vet bill.
Okay, start again. Sorry.
You lost?
No, somebody reached out to me on something.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So a guy and his girl broke up.
Yep.
Just before they broke up, he bought plane tickets for her and him to go to a wedding.
Okay.
They broke up 3 days before this wedding. He didn't want to leave her high and dry. Mm-hmm. So he's going to give her the ticket. He swapped his ticket to go see his family.
Okay.
Gave her the ticket. He owed money for a vet bill. He's going to backtrack the funding for the tickets out of the vet bill. And that seems fair so far, right?
So he paid for the tickets?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's giving her the ticket, not going to just throw it away or get his money back.
Right. He's not asking her for the money there,
right.
But then he's basically saying, but I owe...
Yeah, let's say it's a $500 ticket. Say, oh, $600 on a vet bill. So now, $100. Let's say that's the math. All right. So she is trying to say the plane ticket is a gift, but we were not together. And now she wants the whole vet bill. Clarification on this matter would be appreciated.
Oh, I would like that too.
Thank you. The Angry X.
Angry X. I like it.
There's no contract, right? So it's just her not being a good person.
Yeah, that's tricky, and I don't know if it's the kind of gift that contemplated, in some kind of tax perspective, or
right.
It sounds like it was a gift. I don't know. Do they have an agreement in place? By the way, who's on the hook for the vet bill? Who's signed for it?
Yeah, that's what I wondered too. Because he says that he owes her money for a vet bill. So I'd assume that she probably paid it. She paid the
vet, so the vet's taken care of.
Yeah, and he already paid for the tickets. I think we got to push.
Yeah,
I think we got to push here, McDivitt.
Well, I might say to him, I'm going to say, hey, look, just make her fight you for it.
All right.
Maybe she'll take him small claims court, and then he looks like a good guy. I mean, he paid for the ticket. It's a ticket she's able to use to go to a wedding that he's not invited to anymore.
And he could have canceled it, got his money back, and then she would have to buy tickets 3 days before, and it would probably be twice as much at least, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I'll tell you what. So, if there's any money owed after the plane ticket, let's say it was a $600 bill, you paid $500 for the ticket, you owe her $100, give her $100 and say thanks. And then walk away. I would do that. I would send her the $100 and or Venmo to however he wants to do it, and document that is it's in payment of his contribution to the vet bill, and then she comes after him. We'll see what happens. But he's done everything he needs to do to document what it's for and the gift, and then she's got I think she has an uphill road, whether she's right or not. I mean, this is one of those things where they say possession's 9/10 of the law. Right.
Sometimes they say if there's a lawyer out there who specializes in this and they're listening right now, they might be pulling their hair out at this kind of an answer. But I mean, I kind of think on this one, you just let it run its course and just see.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, you're probably a lot better off without her.
Yeah.
I would say probably so, sir. All right. What time is it here? We got room for one more of these things here. What do you want to, child support or getting the gun back?
The child support's really easy.
Is it easy?
Yeah,
Let's do that
read
one,
the question. We can knock that out.
This is from Citizen Landon. Simple. What is the formula to calculate child support?
It's on a website.
It's on the website. So you just Google how to calculate child support?
Yeah, there is in Colorado. We've got, you go to the court's website and there is a calculator for that. Now, granted, I think that there are some vagaries to this, and depending on the situation, if you had lawyers, both of you would maybe come to a slightly different calculation or an analysis of it. But if you don't want to bring the lawyers into it, there is typically a way that you can take a look So it's the Colorado Child Support Guidelines designed to help dictate all of this. Did you find it there on the judicial branch?
Just literally Googled how to determine child support in Colorado.
Yeah, state of Colorado. There it is.
Calculating payments. Colorado Child Support Guidelines are designed to make sure that a fair share of each parent's income and resources are given to the child. They base it on gross income, the kid's income, number of overnights the child spends with each parent, expenses from insurance to daycare, the child support orders. Man. See, that's why I'm just pro, just cut the kid in half. You get half of it. I'll take the other half, and we'll just kind of go our separate ways.
That's right.
Easy enough.
That's one way to do it. But yeah, go to the web. That's why I said this is an easy one. Just go to the website, and for, it'll save you money from having to use lawyers, and that may be enough.
All right. Yeah. Google. Who knew? Okay, I'll tell you what. We got to get to the call from Michael on the serious one that we got.
Yeah.
One more with a guy who has something dating back to 2012, never charged with or convicted or charged with domestic violence. Wants to know what his rights are in regards to gun ownership. Like I said, probably easily the most common question we get asked here, huh?
A lot of people like their guns.
Right? Well, especially if you can't have one.
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
And unfortunately, something that many of us may have to deal with, the loss of your partner, and then medical bills that roll in after that. It's so insulting to think about that, right? You lose the love of your life. And then a reminder and crippling debt on a monthly basis. That's great. Way to go, America. Way to go. So this is from Citizen Michael, who we talked to off the air here a little bit. You had some questions for him. So the medical policy was under his wife's name. And he wants to know, is he still having to pay all these debt? He's paid a lot of the bills, but now he's broke and has still more bills coming in. Again, just random stuff, $500 a year, a couple thousand a year. What does he do? Where does he go?
Well, he's been trying to do the right thing. I mean, just as he sees it, which is to pay these obligations. One thing you have to find out in a case like this is there an estate? I mean, is there... through the probate process, the creditors, her creditors, the hospital, the medical providers, people who have bills owed, they're able to, file for their claims to be reimbursed the money that they have for the services that they provided, the money that they're owed. Now, there is an argument they could make to go after him directly, personally, so not just her estate, for example, but to go after him personally as the spouse, and it's called the family purpose doctrine, and it applies in different contexts. And in this situation, it could apply to say, look, he benefited from the medical care. The medical care that they provided her was for the benefit of the whole family, and therefore he is obligated to reimburse the providers for the treatment that they provided. There may or may not work, but that might be a claim that they would make. So what I would suggest to anybody in this situation, there are attorneys who specialize in debt collection issues and bankruptcy to find out, there may be other options besides bankruptcy, but an attorney like that can really help give a person some concrete answers and some defined steps that they can take to try to insulate themselves from these obligations, because it can continue to drain somebody and just bleed them out. So I would consult, Michael, if you're listening, reach out to an attorney who specializes in bankruptcy. Maybe speak to a few different attorneys.
And they'll basically do the numbers and make sure, all right, this is going to benefit you, or no, this is going to cripple you even more.
Yeah, and it's not just a question of doing the numbers too. It's a question of looking at the totality of the circumstances surrounding that particular issue. Is an estate established? Has it been set up? Are they going after the estate as creditors of the estate? Or are they just relying right now on Michael's goodwill? Or just they send bills to the house, and they're getting checks in the mail and return it. And because if that happens, they're going to continue to send the bills to that address because they're getting paid back. And he can only do so much. And I think that gets factored into it too. He's making a good faith attempt to get these paid, and you can chip away at some of this, and maybe you can get some kind of global resolution where they say, okay, we're just going to write off the rest of it. This is how much is owed. But from the estate itself, and if they're not happy with that, then they could pursue a claim against him personally. So you could make an argument, Michael, that you shouldn't be just voluntarily making these payments. But I'm not saying not to do that because other factors come into play. What I am saying to do is to speak to a bankruptcy specialist. And I use the word bankruptcy, but it is not all that they do. They help people with their debts. It's not just a race to file for bankruptcy. These lawyers will help guide you and give you hopefully the answers that can come up so that you can come up with a good plan for this.
Yeah, that's tough. There should be some kind of a slush fund. Programming. I understand these hospitals and you get paid and stuff like that, but yeah, prorate it to where it's affordable and then have some kind of a state fund that covers this, Tough. That's very tough. We wish you the best, Michael. Good luck there. All right. On a lighter note, common theme, and the last question, we only got a couple minutes left here today. It's from Citizen Dawn. So, my ex put a restraining order on me in 2012, and then she moved to Florida in 2015. So, how does he go about getting his gun rights back? He was never convicted of domestic violence.
So, my guess is that, look, we've got to make some assumptions here to answer this question, or at least to give my best answer. I don't know. Then it sounds like he was charged with a crime, but then maybe went to court and he was found not guilty. I'm not sure, but at some point in time, either a temporary protective order, which is how we call them in Colorado. We hear restraining order all the time, but really in Colorado we call them protective orders. You can have a temporary protective order. You can have a permanent protective order. You can even have an emergency protective order, which is entered when you don't even have the time to get a temporary protective order. But I'm going to make an assumption that Don is the restrained party under a permanent protective order, which was entered before 2013. And I think in 2013, some of the laws around it changed. So you have to go back to what there are laws in place that says for any protective order issued prior to 2013, here's the method by which you can actually try to unwind the protective order. So he can file to actually have it removed.
Okay.
And then once that's done, then you begin the analysis of whether or not his right to own a firearm is impacted by anything else. Because the protective order probably has in place, and again, it's going to depend too on what the underlying allegations were that served as this protective order, which is really separate from the criminal charges. So it's a civil protective order that's in place that will then dictate certain things, like you can't be around somebody, for example, physically near them, you can't contact them, and you can't also, if the underlying reason for it was particularly violent in nature, you may not be able to own or possess or be around a firearm. We talked about that last time. Even being like if your spouse has a firearm and you have protective order in place related to somebody else.
So a protective order filed in 2012, does that stick with them forever though?
If it's a permanent protective order.
Okay.
Yeah, as it relates to that person who's moved to Florida. But the fact that the person has moved to Florida is one of the factors that a court will look at in determining whether or not this protective order needs to remain in place.
And if he was never actually convicted or even tried for any crimes, that's also a feather in his cap.
That's another factor.
Okay. Yep. So depending on the situations they're done, there's a good chance you get your rights back. And then you can straighten up. Start talking nice to ladies like McDivitt over here.
Yeah, they're still not sliding into my DMs. Don, I don't know what to tell you, man.
Now that you're offering up 6 sweet tickets to Air Force football, you never know what's going to come across. What? So, find any of the social medias with McDivitt Law.
Thank you for listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM, presented by McDivitt Law Firm.